Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. It's an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, all sorts of good stuff. And I am joined by a guy who would never leave a coffee cup on a set, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I have a theory. I think Nick Fury is not in Spider-Man Far From Home. I think it's the chameleon.
Well, we'll talk about that in just a little bit. One of our viewers actually said that exact same thing yesterday. And maybe the chameleon, or maybe it's Ashley Whalen. Ashley, how are you doing?
How will anyone ever know? I'm doing great. Thank you. I got to see improvised Shakespeare last night, and it was amazing with Thomas Middleditch. So I'm in a great mood. Awesome comedy. You guys should go check it out.
Speaking of things that we all got to see last night, I got to go see a little film called Detective Pikachu last night. So I went out to go see Detective Pikachu, and I was expecting fun, funny, cute and adorable, and a solid package of a movie. That's what I was expecting. What did Detective Pikachu give me? Well, I'll say this overall. It's not a very good story. It is unfortunately not a very good story to it. It has some pretty significant plot holes to it. It also has a lot of things that happen in the movie that really shouldn't have happened and then just were like, oh gosh, that was convenient, and a lot of that kind of stuff. You know, one of the things I've been hearing a lot of people say about Detective Pikachu is that if you're into Pokemon, then this movie's for you. You know, if you're into Pokemon, then this movie was made for you. And if you're not into Pokemon, you could probably come along for the ride. Now, I'm not somebody who's really into Pokemon. And I can tell you that what those people said is absolutely true. I could just tell that there was a lot of stuff in this movie that was going right over my head because, I guess saying a bloop bloop doing a gleekity gleek is funny to the audience because I don't know what a bloopty bloop or a gleekity gleeky is. But anyway, so that seemed to really appeal to a lot of the audience. But yeah, and by the way, I went, Anne was busy last night, so Kaori Takei came with me, and 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes into the movie, I leaned over to Kaori and I told her the resolution of the film and how the film, my guess is like, oh, they're going to do this, and this turns out to be this, and this turns out to be this. And the movie ended, and that's exactly what happened. And she turned to me, she's like, how did you know? I'm like, it was just kind of obvious. So anyway, there's that whole thing. But I will say, one of the things I was expecting from a Detective Pikachu was for it to be incredibly cute. And incredibly cute it was. I was there with Kaori, and Kaori is a Pokemon fan, and like, she was like, several times through the movie, you can just hear Kaori say out loud, oh my God, I'm gonna die, just because like something would come on screen. And true to form, it was adorable. A lot of the things in this were adorable. I wanted some laughs. It definitely gave some laughs. So as somebody who's not really into the Pokemon stuff, I gotta say, I was able to go along with most of it, but I think a lot of the decent stuff went over my head. Now, I'm gonna say this too. One of the really glaring negatives of the movie, unfortunately for me, is they try in the first like 10, 15 minutes of the film to set it up as if, hey, this is the real world, just imagined if Pokemon live in it. And it kind of felt like that. They were taking it half seriously. It's like, oh yeah, this is the world we live in and blah, 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 blah. And then came along a character played by Catherine Newton. And I like Catherine Newton a lot because she's a semi-regular on Supernatural. She was going to be one of the stars of the Wayward Sisters. And I do not blame her as the actress. She just did what she was told. But that character was so Saturday morning cartoon character that it just instantly pulled me out of the movie every time they were in. I think that's the way the character was written. I don't think it was her fault. I think that's the way the character was written. And it was really unfortunate they did that. Although her Pokemon, I believe the name is Psyduck, I think. Don't kill me if I'm wrong about that. But her Pokemon was completely adorable too. And you've got Bill Nye is in it. It's like, I love Bill Nighy, and he's great in it, and I really dug that. And of course, yes, Bill Nye is very different from Bill Nighy. It's Bill Nighy is in it, the great actor. And so at the end of the day, is this a really good movie? Nah. But is it worth seeing if you want to just go and have some giggles and feel the cuteness of it? Then yeah, it is. I walked out going, yeah, I had a modestly good time watching it, but I do think if you're into Pokemon, I think it's going to hit even better for you. So yeah, that's my overall. If you're not into Pokemon, I'd say, yeah, go with somebody who's going to see it anyway. I think you may have a decent enough time. Just understand, as a motion picture, it's got some glaring weaknesses. But if you're into Pokemon, this movie was made for you. And I think you're going to get a real kick out of it. So that's kind of my thoughts on Pokemon.
John, let me ask you, for a movie like this, it sounds to me like it's called Detective Pikachu.
Yes, it is.
So that implies that there's a mystery, and you went in and you said you nailed what the mystery was 5 minutes after the movie started. I would say that for myself, for all the goofiness and my lack of knowledge about Pokemon, if there's still a good mystery within the world, I would like the film. But if you say that you'd figured it out after 5 minutes, the mystery itself doesn't work, or does it?
Well, I mean, that's actually a great question, because here's the thing. I was at point A. I figured out what point Z was. But there was a lot of unanswered questions about, well, how does that happen? Like, if point Z is where we end up, I have no idea how that gets there. And there were still several things along the way. So yeah, there is a rudimentary mystery involved in the movie that they start going on. Now, one of the things you find out from the trailer is that they're searching for his dad. They're searching for Justice Smith's dad, right? The secondary mystery is Pokemon. They don't reveal this in the trailer, but I don't feel like I'm giving you a spoiler at all here. The secondary mystery is Pikachu has no memory. And Pikachu, because something happened. So there are two actual separate mysteries going on. There's the primary mystery, trying to find the dad. We know that from the trailer. The secondary mystery is finding out what happened to Pikachu. And that's the secondary mystery that goes along. And then there's a couple of other little questions along the way as they go. And it's rudimentary. It's basic. It was a nice little television show mystery, not a motion picture mystery, you know? But again, if you're somebody who you can go in and say, if something is really cute and makes you giggle and laugh and smile a little bit, I think this is a movie that even if you're not a Pokemon fan, you can like. But if you're a Pokemon fan, this is really more for you than anybody else. So that's my thoughts on that.
So Pokemon and Captain Marvel had their own memory journey.
Yes, there's some similarity here going on throughout that. So, okay, guys, listen, with that down and out of the way, let's go on to our main questions today. How do we select our main questions on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simply. See, you select them by sending us your topics and questions by going to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you're there, just fill out the form, hit submit, and maybe, just maybe, you may see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. With that down, Ashley, what is our first main topic today?
Okay, guys, first one up is from Jason Fay. I enjoy Brad Pitt as an actor, and I think James Gray has a great eye with visuals. His film, The City of Lost Z, ranks up there with Apocalypto for visual palettes. So I was sad to learn that Ad Astra was pulled from its May release date. Disney has not announced a new release date. Now I'm worried. When do you think this movie gets released, or does it get shelved? I'm cautiously optimistic for an Oscar-friendly release.
Yeah, so one of the questions that a lot of people have been asking over the past 2 months is like, Ad Astra is supposed to be coming out in like 10 minutes. Where's the posters? Where's the trailers? Where are the marketing? Then we got down to within a month of it finally coming out. And then finally the word came. It has been pulled from its release date. And really, understanding that this was a Fox film that's now moved over to Disney, there's some very good reasons why we should have anticipated this getting its release date pulled. Here's what it says in Deadline. Disney remains mum on the matter. It has the tentpole Aladdin on May 24th. Now, Ad Astra was supposed to come out May 24th. However, now Disney owns Fox, and Disney has their own main film coming on the 24th, Aladdin, so no big surprise. So it makes sense that Ad Astra is flying away from the date. Disney also Fox's Ford versus Ferrari from James Mangold on November 15th. Ad Astra follows astronaut Roy McBride, played by Brad Pitt, who travels to the outer edges of the solar system to find his missing father and unravel a mystery that threatens the survival of our planet. Tommy Lee Jones, Ruth Negga, Jamie Kennedy, and Donald Sutherland co-star. So they're looking at release dates right now, and they were like, okay, well, we've got Aladdin opening up on this date. So we can't do anything else. Like we can't have Ad Astra opening up on the same date as say what am I thinking of here? We can't have it on the same date as Aladdin, but at the same time, another thing we cannot do is simply look at putting it in the fall or early winter closer to, Oscar season, because at that point we've got this little Ford versus Ferrari movie coming out at the same time. So they're still struggling and wrestling with this. Now, Rob, there was some speculation going around that maybe they would look at just putting this over to Hulu, do a direct streaming thing with it. But I think there is a lot of belief in this film around the studio. They said there's still a lot of visual effects to finish up. But I believe all signs point to this is getting a theatrical release just later in the year. Are you surprised by any of this? Does this make sense to you? And do you ultimately think this is going to get a theatrical release to go straight to streaming?
Well, look, I hope not, because this movie is exactly what I feared. There's going to be a transitional moment. Disney theatrical films are events.
Yeah.
All of them. They're not used to releasing Oscar bait movies. That's not what Disney does. And that's why part of what they're going to do with Fox is that Fox Searchlight. I could see this movie perhaps, I have no idea, no knowledge of this at all, that they might release it as a Fox Searchlight film because it does have a great pedigree. And James Gray has made a lot of good films, and he was at USC, I think, when I was there. And I've been a fan of his and his work. And this movie, I mean, you got Brad Pitt in it. It's a science fiction film. I think it needs a careful release. It needs marketing. You can't just throw out a movie without any marketing. No one's seen a trailer for this movie. There's been virtually no marketing at all.
Yeah.
And I would hope that it doesn't go, not that there's anything wrong with debuting on Hulu, but this is a movie that should be seen in a theater. If it's good. We have no information that it had any kind of a troubled production, other than it went in. It's really intriguing to me. I think anybody who watches this show is a fan of good science fiction, and this sounds like this is going to be intriguing at least. So I think we're going to see this film. But I mean, look what Disney's got. You in a summer where they've got Aladdin followed by The Lion King, they're not going to release another big budget sci-fi film. Now they're not built for it yet. It's part of the transition to see what they're going to do and how they're going to take those Fox projects. Plus, they've got Dark Phoenix coming out, and that's going to be their primary focus in between Aladdin, in between Lion King. So,
and then they've got Ford v Ferrari in November. So,
and that's their Oscar movie.
So let's say you're an exec, you're a distribution exec over at Disney. Where are you looking to plant Ad Astra right now? Understand that we haven't seen a single thing from this movie, but where would you think you would plant it?
I think I could see it being a holiday film. It's about a man who's going to look for his missing father. Depending on what happens, I mean, it could definitely be something you could release over Christmas. But then they have this other science fiction movie coming out at Christmas. That thing,
what
what's
could
that
that
movie
possibly
called?
be?
I don't
with
know.
the wars and space and stuff like that. Yeah.
So maybe an early 2020 release.
Yeah, so you may be thinking even bump it to the next year.
Yeah.
Well, they still said they do have a lot of visual effects to go. How much of the visual effects work they have to do, we'll have to wait and see. I know I am very intrigued by this film, especially when you put in a Brad Pitt. He's one of the iconic superstars of our era. And you put in a Tommy Lee Jones playing his dad. You've got a little bit of an Inception sort of feel to it in a way. I'm down for this, and I'm going to be really curious to see where this thing. Where do you guys think Ad Astra is going to end up? I'm looking forward to it. Are you, or could you guys really care less about it? Jump down in the comment section below and let me know what you think. All right, with that down, Ashley, what is our next topic today?
Next one is from Nicholas Bowman. So, with the multiverse being introduced in Spider-Man Far From Home, do you think somewhere down the road, Sony and Disney could work out a deal to bring Tom Hardy's Venom and Jared Leto's Morbius from Sony's universe of Marvel characters in the MCU?
Well, this is funny because this has been coming up a lot over the last couple of days, Rob. The whole notion about, well, they said the word. I mean, there they at in the trailer. They said the word multiverse. They said the word multiverse, which I think is tragic and stupid. But we've seen people take tragic and stupid things and make amazing diamonds out of them. And if anybody can do that, it's Kevin Feige. But they said the word multiverse. Two trains of thought happened on that immediately that I've been getting inundated with messages from people about. Number one, and in no particular order, number one is that, well, this is how they're planning on bringing X-Men into the universe. Yeah, you got to remember, they had this planned years ago. The X-Men stuff had nothing to do with this multiverse stuff. Remember that. The multiverse stuff was planned years ago. They knew where Endgame was going to end up and where Spider-Man Far From Home was going years ago, before the Fox deal was ever in there. But that doesn't mean they couldn't now use it since it's conveniently there. They could, but I doubt it. Still, we'll see what happens. But the other one, and equally as much, that I got from people, Rob, was the question of Venom. Does this then open the door for Venom to cross over with Spider-Man and have a Spider-Man crossover with Venom? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, Rob, my initial reaction to that was, no, I doubt it. I mean, really, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me to do that. I think Sony doesn't need an excuse to bring Spider-Man into a Venom movie if they wanted to. They wouldn't have to have any kind of excuse if they really wanted to. But then, Rob, I remembered a little something. And we're going to go back now to 2017, the summer of 2017, prior to the release of Spider-Man Homecoming. And Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal were confronted with a question. So are we going to see Spider-Man and Venom in the same movie and all this kind of stuff? And Amy Pascal, I want to remind everybody what Amy Pascal said to that a lot of people discussed for a minute and then we all discarded and forgot about. But let's go back to what she said in 2017. She said the following. First, when asked about the Sony and Spider-Man and Venom and all that kind of stuff. First, there is Spider-Man happily living in the place where he's supposed to be, which is in the Marvel Universe. I think everything comes from that. This is the signpost, the tentpole, the signature, and the other movies that Sony's going to make in their relationship to this MCU Spider-Man take place in this separate Sony world. Although you're not going to see them in the Marvel Universe, it's in the same reality. Let's listen to that last one again. Although you're not going to see them in the Marvel Universe, it's in the same reality. Now, if you guys remember correctly, when that happened, remember, she was with Kevin Feige as she was saying that. And when she said that, Kevin Feige had a notable reaction. And people were like, oh, because she was lying and saying something wrong. Or was it that she was starting to slip a couple of things that she shouldn't slip? Because look, I'm not saying this is what's happening, Rob. I'm not. But if we take what she said back in 2017.
I always take what she said.
Always take what she said. And then we now look at the current circumstance where we've got a multiverse being introduced. They are in different universes. But is that when she slipped same reality, could she have been foreshadowing, or was that a slip of the tongue letting us know that there are these plans down the road? You've heard this comment. What do you think, Rob?
I don't think there's a multiverse. I think that you've got the quantum realm. We've already seen that in Endgame. Those of you who know your comic book history, Amazing Spider-Man #1. Yeah, you see the Fantastic Four on the cover. But what else happens in that? The Chameleon strikes. The Chameleon is a character that's been with Spider-Man since issue 1. I think Nick Fury is not in this movie. I think it's the Chameleon. I think Mysterio and the Chameleon have teamed up. I think everything we've seen in the trailers is a sham. And I think when we watch this movie, it's going to be even better. That's why there's this line, you're a hard man to find. That's why Nick Fury, Mysterio, the Chameleon doesn't know that. I mean, who knows when they've met? They probably didn't. I think there's shenanigans. I call shenanigans, John. I think this movie is, and knowing this is my theory. This is a lot of other people's theories. I think it makes it a better movie. I love the fact that we're getting played by the villains. Even in the trailer, we as an audience are getting played. I can't wait for this movie. But I think what Amy Pascal said is really interesting, because there's lots of stuff that's going on in the world that we don't see in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What's going on in San Francisco? We know Scott Lang is there, and maybe, hey, who's to say Venom isn't in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? We just haven't seen him. We don't know what 7 billion people are doing all the time. We only see our characters during the movies. So why couldn't Morbius and Venom be around?
Well, I think they made it pretty clear they're not in the same, and Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal did make that clear. They're not in the same universe. She just then threw in that last line. But they're in the same reality.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the difference? So if they're not in the same universe, they're in the same different reality. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, Rob. This whole theory of yours about the Chameleon is now suddenly there. This does remind me a little bit of the Kang theory that everybody started to have about Endgame. It's like, no, Kang's going to show up. Everybody was saying Kang's going to be there and he's going to be the villain. But it's like, but they've said there's no casting of Kang. There's nobody's ever mentioned Kang. there's been no mention of a chameleon. There's been no mention of anything like that. Do you really think there's another major villain in this film that has a major role like that and is taking that out? Do you really
I'll tell
think
you
that's a
why I
possibility?
think that. Because the Quinjet blows up. We saw in the trailer that Happy's flying there. I'm sure he's as shocked as anyone that the Quinjet blows up. How could that jet blow up?
Well,
who could get on that jet? Who could place explosives or
There
get
could
on?
be a million explanations. Clearly, there was something frantic going on. There was some violence going on around them. I'm sure there's a million ways that could have happened, couldn't it?
You don't ghost Nick Fury.
You don't ghost Nick Fury.
Unless it's not Nick Fury.
I don't know. Look, this whole notion, a lot of people saying this is not actually Nick Fury. I see. Now, my big problem with that is this. Maria Hill would see through it.
She's
Now,
not there either.
I mentioned that to you, and then you said, that's not Maria Hill either. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. So now it's not only is it not Nick Fury, it's also not Maria Hill. Is it actually Happy?
That's what Mysterio does.
Oh, okay.
Mysterio and the Chameleon are in cahoots. They're aiding one another. It's a deception. It's a
All right.
deception. They're villains.
I'll say this. I'm open. I don't think it's the case, but I am open to the notion that it may not be the real Nick Fury. Although I do think it is. I'm open to that notion. I don't buy into this chameleon thing. I just think we would have known that the character was going to be in the movie. I cannot buy into it. I wish I could. It sounds pretty cool, but I don't think there's been any indication that that's a remote possibility. But you're sold on this. You really think that's going to happen?
No, but I think it's a great theory, and
It is a great theory.
I think it'd be a cool movie because what a cool villain twist that would be.
Yeah.
And look, we all think we're seeing Nick Fury, and then at the end, it turns out it's not him. How cool! First of all, I just love stories like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to see. I mean, what villains are just going to wreak havoc again? Wouldn't it be more interesting if Spider-Man and devastating for Spider-Man if he becomes friends with these guys, and then suddenly, oh. Gotcha.
Well, speaking of possible twists, there's another possible twist that we're going to get to in another topic here in just a second. With that said, let's go on to the next topic. Ashley, what is our next topic today?
Next one is from Darren Wilson. I was wondering, do you think it strains the Disney and Sony relationship at all with Sony having to put up a spoiler warning at the start of their trailers for Spider-Man Far From Home? Just wondering, as I feel it may put people off from paying attention to their marketing if they haven't seen Endgame yet.
You know what? It's funny. I've been hearing from a bunch of people over the last little while saying Disney's got to be mad about this trailer that Sony's put out. This has got to be some arguing. There's some angry phone calls being made right now. But Rob, I'll tell you what. Look, is it standard operating procedure to put out a trailer for a movie that reveals significant spoilers for another movie that is currently in theaters? Absolutely not. That is not standard operating procedure. But there is nothing about Endgame that has been standard operating procedure, and there is nothing about the MCU that has been standard operating procedure. And we've also never really had a situation like this in the history of Hollywood where Sony and Disney are sharing this character, that Sony's been generous enough to share the character with Marvel and Disney, working together with having back-to-back movies coming out just 2 months apart from each other. There's absolutely nothing kind of standard operating procedure about this. But honestly, the bottom line is this. Sony and Disney are clearly working very closely together when it comes to the Spider-Man character in the MCU and to the Spider-Man character in the Sony's release films of the MCU movies and in whatever's going on in their other alternate reality stuff. They knew this well in advance. I don't think that I don't think Bob would have found out a couple of days ago, yesterday when this trailer, I don't think Bob Iger woke up in the morning going, check my phone, see what's going on. What the hell? They put out a trailer spoiling my movie. I don't think that happened. I think they knew about this not just months ago, but years ago. I think they've had this well planned out for a long time. I think Disney was totally cool with it. That's why the Russo brothers said last week, Monday you can lift spoiler reviews, because everybody knew they're all on board. So no, Rob, I think this was all hat in hand. I think they've done this cooperatively. I think they came to these decisions together on this. Even though Sony has the final word on what they do, I think this was all done 50-50 partnership. So no, I don't think this strains anything at all. How do you see this?
I think it's brilliant asymmetric marketing. You've got Tom Holland coming out. What's the first thing he says? Hey, before you watch the Spider-Man trailer, watch this other movie from another studio.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable that they were able to get this kind of synergy. It's brilliant, and a high tide rises all ships. I mean, if you haven't seen Endgame, and who, by the way, hasn't in this community, we're on viewing 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I think it was amazing to see what they did, and it also shows what's possible. You know, what studios can start studios have to start thinking out of the box. The world is changing, and this is a really interesting way to do it. You've got your star of two. Tom Holland is being shared by 2 studios. I mean, you have he's turning into a major star now with Spider-Man. This is his second movie. He's been in Civil War. He's been in 2 Avengers movies. Now he's in his second Spider-Man movie. And I think it's brilliant. And they actually got him to say Endgame on a trailer for a Sony movie.
And you know what else is funny? I think it's really funny that they ended up getting Tom Holland, of all people, to say, spoiler warning, because he's the one who's had really loose lips. But actually, let me ask you this. Now, I know you've seen Endgame. I know you've seen it. But let's say for a moment that you hadn't. And this is a concern some people have been raising, that, well, if people hadn't seen Endgame yet, now that they've seen this Spider-Man trailer, they won't want to bother going to see Endgame. Let's say you hadn't seen Endgame yet. Would seeing that Spider-Man trailer at all deter you from going to go see Endgame still at some point?
No, I don't think so at all. I would still see Endgame. If you're talking about, like, have I seen a bunch of other movies like Infinity War and everything like that, then I would obviously still see Endgame. If I just didn't see any of them, then maybe. But I definitely would still see Endgame and Far From Home, though. So, I don't know.
So basically we're in a no harm, no foul
I don't think
situation.
so at all.
Really. Yeah, so I think everything is still fine and good. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. All right, let's move on to the next topic today.
All right, next one. Excuse this name. Jyotishwar Sign. All right. Hey, John, Rob, and Ash. Mysterio being a true villain as a twist would be too predictable for Marvel. We know Mysterio from the comics, so the best bet would be a Mysterio who starts as a hero in his own sights, but halfway through the movie encounters differences in ideologies about being a hero with Spider-Man. I think it's going to be a Black Panther-esque showdown of ideologies with both sides having merits and demerits.
You know what, Rob? I'll tell you what. I think that's kind of a great idea. Somebody brought this up to me initially, and then I noticed it from a few other people, and including Mr. Singh sending it in. The notion of, okay, well, wait, if, like, we're all watching this, okay, well, Mysterio's pretending to be a good guy, so obviously they're going to discover he is the big villain Mysterio is. Well, what if? Just what if the real curveball and the real twist that they're going to throw at the audience isn't the predictable, turns out Mysterio's a bad guy, which we all know is coming. What if the twist here is that Mysterio really is what he appears to be on face value, and he's a hero. He's a good guy, or at least trying to be a good guy on something like that. Reminds me a little bit of Lego Movie Part 2. You know, Queen whatever Watanabe. You know, we just assumed, pretending to be a good guy, but really a bad guy. Oh, wait a minute. Turns out she was a good guy all along. If they were to pull something like that, like, what if Mysterio's actually a good guy? Do you think that would, number one, give you a couple options here, Rob. Would that, number one, be a really creative way to throw us off balance and really catch us off guard and to do something very different and unique? Or number two, which I think a lot of people would look at it as this, do you think that would be a bit of a betrayal of comic book fans and what we know Mysterio to be? Like, if they were to do that, what would your first reaction to that would it be out of those two options?
Well, look, I think that one of the strengths is that the villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe are different than we expect from the comics. They've done different things. Certainly they did in Civil War. Vulture had a really good reason for doing what he did.
So great character.
And I think that shows that we're getting nuanced villains here. No one is a mustache twirling villain in the MCU, and I think that why not have both? I mean, Mysterio might have begun as a good guy and made that kind of a turn. I think that's absolutely possible. I think Mysterio's origins might even have something to do with the snap. Maybe he, like Hawkeye, went, who knows? But whatever we're going to get, it's not going to be so cut and dried. It's going to be different. I mean, clearly, I think he's creating the 4 elementals that are attacking Europe, whatever's going on there. I think there's a lot more to this. And I think the villain's going to be a lot more complex and more interesting than just being a guy wearing a fishbowl on his head. and I really do. And I can't wait. You know, you get an actor like Jake Gyllenhaal. For anyone who's seen, I'm a huge fan, all the way from whether it's Donnie Darko, whether it's October Sky, whether it's Nightcrawler. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Gyllenhaal, and I think that he wouldn't have taken the role if it didn't have something that appealed to him personally as a performer.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. Because he had Batman on his... He had a Batman on his list. We know he was the first choice to go back and be the new Batman. That, for whatever reason we don't know, didn't turn out. I think you raised a really good point. There had to be something there for a guy like Jake Gyllenhaal to be gravitated towards this role, to be pulled towards this role. And I don't think it's just because it's an MCU movie. I don't think he would do it just because it's an MCU movie.
We might have wanted a cool hot toy of himself. Let's face it.
I mean, that's true. Who doesn't want a cool hot toy of themselves at this point, right? All right. With that down and out of the way, Ashley, what is our final main topic today?
Last one up is from J-23. John, big fan of the show. Keep up the good work. My man, did you see Jared Leto's recent comments about playing the Joker again and the state of DC? Do you think he will play the Joker again? How can you do all these Harley Quinn projects and not include the Joker?
You know what? I know it's the popular thing. It is the cool thing to hate on the Jared Leto Joker. I get it, and I understand that I'm putting myself in everybody's crosshairs when I stand up and say, damn it, I like Jared Leto's Joker. Is it as good as Heath Ledger's Joker? No. Is it as good as Jack's Joker? No. But it was a different Joker. You know, Rob, you and I often talk about the fact that one of the big challenges in doing a Joker is that each time you do want to make him completely unique from the other ones, yet at the same time maintain that chaos spirit of what and who the Joker is, right? And that's a funny line to balance. How do you do a new Joker that's nothing like Jack's and that's nothing like Heath's, but still be essentially the Joker in this new kind of way? And I actually dug what they did in one of my criticisms, although we all have many criticisms of Suicide Squad, but one of my criticisms of Suicide Squad was my favorite parts was every time Joker and Harley Quinn were on screen together. When they were on screen together, there's something about that awful, destructive, toxic, codependent relationship that they have that it was just magnets for my eyes. I just want to watch them do their thing. Now, then there was the rumor that, well, there was a report that he was going to get his own Joker movie while Joaquin Phoenix was getting his own Joker movie. That seems to have been swept away. Anyway, what the question is asking about is that just a day or two ago, Jared Leto was asked, number one, are you going to be in the Harley Quinn thing? And he said, I don't think so. You'll have to ask those guys. He could be being a little bit cagey there. So I think there's a possibility he pops up in Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I still hate the title, but so I think there's still a possibility there. But when they asked him straight up and they said, would you play Joker again? And he said, I would definitely do it again. He just flat out, no hesitation. He said, I would definitely do it again. And on top of that, he went on to start talking about the comic book movie genre as a whole. And he said some things that are pretty refreshing, considering we've been getting a number of high-profile, respected actors and filmmakers saying a lot of disparaging things about the comic book genre. Here you've got an Academy Award winning actor who came out and then said this after being asked about the Joker, talking about the comic book movie genre. Jared Leto said this, I love it. I love these films because they get people excited to go to the movies again, or just period. I don't know about again. So I think that's a miracle. 5, 10 years ago, I don't know if we thought there would be people this excited to go to the movies this weekend, talking, of course, about Endgame. So I think that's a celebration. It's created a mythology that people love, and the actors are phenomenal. I mean, I'm all in. I love it. I think it's a blast. It's pretty cool, Rob, to hear an actor like this not just say, even one that's been maligned kind of as he has been, not only say, yeah, I'll come back in a heartbeat to play this character again, but then go on to say, because as an actor, as an Academy Award winner, I think what the comic book movie genre is doing is awesome. It's getting people excited again. It's fun. It's world building. It's mythology building. It's doing all these things that films back, in the early black and white days used to do, where if you're going back to Jason and the Argonauts or whatever. And he's saying, I think these are great. And I personally find it really refreshing hearing an actor of this caliber come out and make those types of statements. So Rob, let me ask you this. You're hearing him saying he would love to come back and do it again, although that's not a big surprise that an actor says, I'd love another high-paying job. But he's saying he'd love to come back and do this again. You're hearing his enthusiasm for the genre. Number one, do you think we'll ever see Jared Leto back as a Joker? And number two, would you want to see Jared Leto back as a Joker?
Well, look, I'm a Jared Leto fan. I've always, all the way back to he was in Fight Club. He's been in so many movies.
God,
he was in Prefontaine. He's got this really strange career, and I really respect his career, between going from his band 30 Seconds to Mars to carrying a replica of his own head at the Met Gala last night.
Which was hilarious.
Hilarious. I mean, and being in Mr. Nobody, which is one of my favorite science fiction fantasy
And he was
films.
quite good in the Blade Runner 2049.
Oh my God.
I liked him in Blade Runner a lot.
I loved him. I love Blade Runner 2049 so much. So, look, if he's going to come back and play the Joker, I'd love to see him. Obviously, we know that they shot a lot more than they used, because we saw footage and there was stills. I'd love to see him come back and have an arc of some kind. Show us, give him more to play than just a couple of minutes. So bring it on. I'd love to see him come back. By the way, there's multiple hot toys of Jared Leto's Joker, and I would love to see him come back and do it again.
I've know a couple people who have one or two of the Jared Leto Joker hot toys, and they're phenomenal.
They're great.
They're really, really great. I would love to see him come back, and you know what? I'm going to give it a 40% chance. I think there's a 40% chance we see him back again as a Joker, whether it's in Birds of Prey or something else. We'll have to kind of wait and see. All right, guys, with that stuff down and out of the way, you know we like to take live questions here on the show, and we're going to get to those in just a second. However, there are a bunch of other things going on in the worlds of movie and television entertainment news, but we don't have time to make them all main topics. So our very own fact checker, Jonathan, would now like to present to you and get you caught up on all that stuff with today's installment of the Movie News Feed. Check it out.
First up, if you watched last weekend's Game of Thrones episode, The Last of the Starks, you may have noticed a little something out of place in an early scene. From Variety, HBO made fun of itself after eagle-eyed Game of Thrones viewers spotted a modern-day coffee cup in the episode. In a press release, the company joked, "The latte that appeared in the episode was a mistake. Daenerys had ordered an herbal tea." For about 2 seconds in Sunday's The Last of the Starks, a takeout coffee cup appeared on a table in front of Daenerys Targaryen around the 1740-minute mark. Based on the size and shape, many fans assumed it was a Starbucks cup, and the hashtag Starbucks trended on Twitter after the episode. The penultimate episode of the series airs this Sunday. Next up, following Disney's Dumbo comes The Lion King and Aladdin to theaters, but later this year, borrowing familiar staples from Asian culture without context. Lady and the Tramp features Tessa Thompson and Justin Theroux as the titular canine couple. Kiersey Clemons and Thomas Mann play Lady's human owners. Sam Elliott voices Trusty the Bloodhound, and Benedict Wong plays Bull the Bulldog. The movie will debut on Disney Plus when the platform launches on November 12th. Next up, although Pokemon Detective Pikachu is looking to appeal to as many demographics as possible, naturally the movie is primarily being marketed towards the younger moviegoers, hence why it has a PG rating. From Cinema Blend, if churning out an R-rated Detective Pikachu movie was on the table, Ryan Reynolds has some ideas for such adult-oriented content. Reynolds said, "I think if you could remake a Pikachu version of Mean Streets, that might be kind of fun. Or Goodfellas." It is worth noting that after being hired onto Pokemon Detective Pikachu, Ryan Reynolds considered taking the voice of his Pikachu in a different direction and offered to make the crime-solving Pokemon sound like an old-school Columbo-style gumshoe. Pokemon Detective Pikachu has earned a fair amount of positive reception, and box office estimates from March placed it at making between $75 and $90 million opening weekend. Looking to the future, a Detective Pikachu sequel is already in the works, and there's a potential for this film series to evolve into a full-blown cinematic universe. Pokemon Detective Pikachu hits theaters this Friday, May 10th. Next up, much to the disappointment of fans, Endgame was the first movie in the MCU to not have at least one post-credits scene. From comicbook.com, even though the film is now in its second week, fans continue to wait through the credits in hopes of a miracle. It's even caused some theaters to start warning fans of the post-credits less movie before it even begins. In a photo shown here, an Inox location warned fans there wouldn't be any post-credit scenes accompanying the film. At this moment, the film has unseated Titanic and rests in the number 2 spot for highest grossing film of all time, just below Avatar. Avengers Endgame is now in theaters and will be followed up by Spider-Man Far From Home on July 2nd. Next up, Benedict Cumberbatch of Avengers Endgame and Elizabeth Moss of The Handmaid's Tale will be starring in The Power of the Dog, the adaptation of the novel written by Thomas Savage. From ComingSoon.net, the book tells the story of wealthy Montana brothers Phil, played by Cumberbatch, and George Burbank. Phil is brilliant and cruel, while George is fastidious and gentle. Together they are joint owners of the biggest ranch in their Montana valley. When George secretly marries local widow Rose, played by Moss, an angry Phil wages a relentless war to destroy her by using her son Peter as a pawn. The Power of the Dog will go into pre-production at the end of this year. And finally, Evangeline Lilly, who most recently appeared in Disney Marvel's Avengers Endgame, and the Mindy Project's Ike Barinholtz have been tapped to play wife and husband in Happy Life, a comedy from former Mindy Project writer and producer David Stason. From Deadline, the film follows new mom Allison Beck, played by Lily, who suspects her workaholic husband Eli, played by Barinholtz, of having an affair with an Instagram star. One mistake after another leads her into the arms of a younger man as she struggles to come to terms with her life decisions and be the mother she aspires to be. Principal photography will commence this summer. And that will do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed.